In the first video about the class competition task, we learned how to navigate the data using the command and arrow keys to get to the top and the bottom of the data. And we learned how to use shift and the arrow keys to highlight different sections of data. And we learned how to combine these ideas by holding down command and shift and just using one arrow keystroke to go all the way to the bottom of the data and highlight it. And one of the situations where you might want to do this is if you want to sort this data, and you can do that using all the different sort options in the data menu. This video is about how to enter formulas into our spreadsheet to have the spreadsheet do calculations for us. So I'm going to begin in this box right here. It happens to be box C2. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to calculate the mean, which we often refer to this as the average, and I'll just put that in parentheses there. The mean is, or the arithmetic average is when you add up all the data points that you have and divide by the total number of data points, and it gives you, it is a measurement of central tendency. It basically describes, it is one description of the middle of this data. Notice that I do have a column title in this first box, and then the bottom of my data is in row 29. So what that means is I have 28 data points here. So rather than trying to add up all 28 of these and then divide by 28, I'm going to use a formula in this box right here to compute the mean, or what we typically refer to as the average. And the reason why I say that is because the name of the formula that we're going to use is average. Now, I could just type average in a box, and now it's just a bunch of letters in a box. It's not that interesting. It certainly doesn't do any calculations for us. So instead, I'm going to put the equal sign, and that's telling the spreadsheet, hey, you're about to do a calculation, and then you're going to display the results of this calculation in the box. So when I type that equal sign, I start typing the word average, and Google is pretty smart here, so this spreadsheet tool gives me all of the possible completions, and this is the one I want, average, just plain old average. And when I select that, it gives me some clues about how to use this. This is very important and interesting context information about the average formula. But really, we want to find the average of all of this data. So what I'm going to do is I'm right inside these parentheses here. I'm going to click on my first data point, and notice it's in box A2, and that's also appearing here in the formula that I'm constructing. And now I'm going to hold down Command and Shift and just go down one time to the bottom of the data. And now you'll notice that inside my formula it says A2 colon A29. So this is the set of numbers that I'm trying to average. I'll close my formula with a parentheses, and I'll hit Enter. And then notice I got to go back to the top of my sheet, but then it computes the average or mean score. And so when you average all 29 of these numbers, the mean is 80.32142, blah, 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 blah. Now, a couple more things before we move on to the next data or calculation that we're going to do. There's some helpful tools available up here. I'm interested in the mean, but I don't need it to the 1/1,000,000th decimal place, right? So I can use these arrows to decrease or increase the number of decimal places that my spreadsheet shows me. And I'm just going to go to like there, the 100th place. So this is really telling the spreadsheet how to round your number. I'm rounding to the nearest 100th at this point, and that seems like a reasonable place to round for these particular numbers. The other thing I want you to notice is it says 80.32 right here. This is a cell, and that's what's being displayed right here. But if you look up here, this is the formula that is inside that box. And so I actually entered a formula, and then the spreadsheet, you found the output of this formula this number, and it's displaying that number to us. So I did not just type in 80.32 into that box. While these two boxes look the same, when you look in the top left corner, you see that here we're using a formula to compute this number. Here I've just entered just a regular old number, and that's not what we want to do. One of the values of using formulas is that let's say that this 87 was not, had a data entry issue and I really meant like 78. Okay, well look, I changed that from 87 to 78 and my mean, the calculation automatically updates. So I can update my data and all of this calculation will update automatically. I don't have to do anything to it in order to let it know about my new data. Let me just undo that. And we're going to move on to a couple of other statistical measurements that we would like to calculate about this data set. The next one, and maybe you've guessed, is the median. And the median is another measurement of central tendency of this data. The median, if you ordered these numbers from least to greatest and found the number that's in the middle, that is the median. And as luck might have it, there is a median formula built into this spreadsheet tool. When I start with the equal sign, start typing median, and it gives me an auto-complete here. And again, this is the data starting here, Command Shift down, ending there. That is the data that I want, whose median I want. Close the parentheses, hit enter, and there's the median. So maybe the first thing to notice is that the mean and the median are not the same necessarily. They are different. Maybe they're close in this particular case, but they are different numbers. And then there's another measure of central tendency called the mode. And as you may recall, the mode is the number that appears most often in the data set. And so I can start again with the equal sign, and when I start typing mode, there it is. And look, it gives us a nice definition, the most commonly occurring value in a data set. That's what we want, the mode. I select my data, close my parentheses, and what do you know? The mode and the median happen to be the same for this data set. So that might be interesting later when we go to analyzing the geometry class and comparing it to the Algebra 2 and the AP Statistics class. But this is basically how we enter formulas in order to have the spreadsheet do calculations for us. And these three calculations that we're having the spreadsheet do are all three different measures of what we call central tendency. What's the middle of this data? That is what central tendency is.